So the clothing was okay. You were okay with the clothing.
Yeah, but the Russian had better clothing. The
Okay.
Russian could sleep outside overnight if they wanted.
Okay.
With -10. We couldn't do that. We had little holes and some branches on top and some dirt on top, and we slept in little stove, that big, and we froze. It was very, very cold, very miserable in these holes.
Now, what did you think of the German weapons and the Soviet weapons? The MG-42 was very good. Did you think any of the Russian weapons were any good?
Yeah, the German submachine gun was no good. There was a magazine in, with bullets, and the Germans like everything too precise. So this had to go on the wall like this.
Okay.
And if there was one kernel sand, you made put, and nothing came anymore, because
too precise.
If there was a little bit of air,
right,
the sand would fall down and the thing went up. Yeah. So that was no good. The Russian had big submachine guns with a big thing on top with 72 shots. They had a lot of, that was a thing for a war like this,
Right.
But the Russian artillery didn't bug us too much. And the Russian Air Force was almost zero.
Did you ever, yourself or any of your friends in your squad, did you ever take any Russian prisoners?
No, we didn't take Russian prisoners.
So the only time you came close to Russians is when you were captured then?
Well, the Russians in front of us, we had to...
Sure.
We saw on this day, there was a long queue. When the shooting was over, the Russians were not, the soldiers, they were not crazy to fight really. And they went through the German lines, and there was an island in the swamp, and they were there on the island. So they brought these guys in the morning and led them to the rail line, to transport them to where, I don't know. Germany most likely.
Tell me about how you were wounded that time. You were shot when you were hit in the leg. Was that a mortar shell or a bullet or?
That was just a gun.
Okay.
How that happened, I saw that in the one, I had a vision on the Soch River, 100 kilometers back, which I had the job to go from these 3 men with a machine gun to these 3, to the next 3 and the next 3. Some 200 meters in the night, I was the only guy who went to this line. When I came near a post, there were 3 guys from Luxembourg there. This man who was later shooting with he was standing there with 2 other Luxembourgers. And they said, Parole, they heard me coming, through the thing, because they had a wire across, and here was a little bell, bim, bim, and you hit the wire, then knew somebody is coming. Yeah. They asked me, who is there? And I said, Scherer. Oh, Scherer said, come here, I have a question. Tell me, how do we ever get home? It was the 1st of December now. Do we ever get home? I said, I looked over to the Russians. I couldn't see, it was night. And somebody said to me, tell him there will be a mass attack and you get a bullet through the leg, a hand right from the knee, and you go home for Christmas. I told him, he said, no, on Christmas you're somewhere here with a big piece of steel in your back, you're snowed over. And this was the man on the machine gun later on on the 15th of December. And then the battle was there. We went 50 meters back, as the corporal said, and we had to shoot at all sides, all around. And then suddenly a man pulled my uniform and he said, there is a guy in that hole in that crater, the grenade crater. Mm-hmm. And if we don't kill him, he killed some of us. He was coming out shooting, and he went down. And I said, you are right. And I looked at the guy who said that to me. He was an Asian, he was a Mongolian type in a German uniform and had the MG42 hanging here. And he was brownish in face, brown, real slanty eyes. And I said, well, in the moment, because of the battle, I could not rest with my thoughts. How does this guy get into the German army? Hitler is a racist. And he said, okay. I said, you are right. So he went out. I went out and had to take his ammunition box, And he advanced, and we advanced about 10 yards. When the guy came up and shot out of the hip, poof, and shot me exactly there what the vision said the bullet would go. Vision also said that the shot does not hit your bone, nothing vital, and you go home for Christmas. And now I had the shot, and this guy, as soon as he came up, pow, this guy shot him up in the middle, and he collapsed, that Russian. And that Mongolian said to me, are you hit? I said, I believe so. I had something like electric shocks, in my leg. And I looked, there was a hole, and in the back was a hole. There was a friend of mine with a big long mustache. He was a medic. He said, Herbert, are you hit? I said, yeah, I think so. And I looked. I said, I cut your pants open. I said, are you crazy? I got these pants yesterday. You don't cut it. I don't run around with cut pants all winter. Put in the middle of this bottle my pants down, and he made me a little plaster here, du hast Schwein gehabt. That means you are very lucky, And said, you see that big pile of hay, go there is a doctor, he gives you tetanus. And I went there, he gave me the tetanus, and 5 minutes later, and there were dead people all over behind that pile, and people were injured. And 5 minutes later, the man who shot with a machine gun with me, he came and he had a splinter here in the face, under the eye, the nose. He had a piece of steel in there. And he was smiling. How could he smile? There was nothing to smile, but then the doctor said, you two, you're the only alive here. Go back. If they mount another attack, we are all dead. Go back 2 kilometers, you come to the railway line. That's why they were attacking. They wanted to cut the railway line. And there is a guy, there's a lot of people dead and alive there. And tomorrow morning at 7, the train is loading you and goes to Warsaw, Poland. And so I didn't ask him no more question. I wanted to get out of that place. Was full of dead people and full of guys with guns. So we walked back and we come there, and there was a big barn, and there were straw in there, and there were people there dead and some alive, some were talking, some were, it was a horrible place. And next morning, 7 o'clock, they picked us up and brought us to Warsaw.
Now, how much trouble did you have at any point when you were in Russia with Russian partisans behind the line?
When we came into Russia, a few kilometers inside Russia, a guy shot with a machine gun at the train. There were partisans all over the place behind the front line, Later we found, very short before we were taken prisoner, because there were 100,000 of they cut the whole center front off. So we couldn't get out, and we found paths in the forest where these guys were moving, Mm-hmm. And that was a dangerous thing with the partisans.
Okay.
But then the Cossacks were fighting on our side, and the Cossacks all the time on horse. They went into the villages where German guys were shot, and they cut down with their swords, they had swords, they cut down the whole population of that whole village. That was the one butchery in this whole time in Russia,
The train you're on going back, so you get to Warsaw. Where do you spend any time in Warsaw when you're going back because you're wounded?
No, there was nothing. Only from Warsaw, between Warsaw and the German border, the train stopped, and then the orderly jumped out and cut a little pine tree and put it in a tin can, and that's a part of my vision from the Zorch River. Exactly it happened, and he put paper balls and put it on a string, and he looked up to me and he said, "How do you like that?" And I said, "Now for you and me it's Christmas." And he said, "Listen, I have an old coffee here and half a glass of gin and 2 sandwiches. And you're the only guy alive, and you want that?" I said, "Yes, please." I didn't eat for 3 days. Put it on a tray and give it to me. I slept on a bed up under the roof, because the partisans, if they would shoot, they shoot lower. Climbed up with my bed leg and slept up there. And he gave me the whole tray, and I was in heaven. I took 1 sip of gin in my empty stomach, and I was in. And then I remembered, the vision on the Zorch River. Exactly, it came true. Exactly. The Christmas tree and the stoppage of the train, everything became true. And I got, in that moment when I realized that this vision became true, I became, all my blood went to my head. I could feel hot suddenly. And then it took a few days to Germany, because sometimes the train had to stop in a tunnel, because there was an air attack. And I was afraid that they would bombard the train, but the train had a red cross on the top, well, it was miserable, but in that moment, when after I had eaten the 2 sandwiches and the gin and the coffee, and I saw the little Christmas tree, I felt better, I could get the bottle out of my head. Because that bottle, this bottle and all the dead and all the guys running away, that is even today still here, in this computer,
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could say delete it, but I cannot do it.
Where did you go to the hospital? Where did you end up recuperating?
Yeah, in the Tsar country where my parents lived. It was a beautiful hospital in a valley, which was before hospital for mentally ill. As I remember, I cannot say for sure, but I heard about it from different people. Hitler said, "These people, we cannot help them." So he gave them all a needle. They were all killed with an injection and buried. So they had a big hospital for people who came from the front line, And my wife, she knew a family who had a boy who was not normal, and they picked him up and they never saw him anymore. That was absolute wrong, That was inhuman, It was still the child of somebody. You cannot kill this child only. He wanted to have strong people, healthy people. You do that with food, not with killing people.
So how long were you in the hospital then?
I was there from December the 24th. On Christmas Eve, I was there to April. My leg was healed very short time after I came to the hospital. I mean, that was nothing. The bullet, when it didn't hit the arteries, It didn't hit the bone. It didn't hit the major nerves. It didn't hit nothing. It went right through. And so I helped the nurses to wash dishes, to serve food, and the food was good there, I must say. So I worked for the nurses, and the nurses said to the doctor, no, we need this guy. Don't send him. He was supposed to send me back in January to the front line, but they kept me there to April or something.
Now, did you change your mind about fighting the Bolsheviks once you were wounded and came back to Germany? Had this very good situation in the hospital? Did you want to go back to Russia or not?
No, I had to go back to Russia.
But did you want to go back?
Well, no. Who wants to go back? At home, it was no wonderful life at home during the war. There was almost nothing to eat, and the bombs. I didn't want to go back. But they built a bomb shelter, not far from where my parents lived. And I went in the few days I could go home. I took a air pressure thing, and went, and made this thing larger,
Okay. Yeah.
And then the bricklayers came and they put bricks, and that's all. I worked all the time when I was at home, and it was only about 8 days, 9 days, and then I had to go back, but not to the camp where I was trained in the same town. I had to go through Poland to East Prussia.
So you were on the northern front then? You weren't in the center anymore?
Yeah, I was still in the center.
Oh, you were still in the center. Okay, so that your entire time in Russia when you were fighting was in the center, not north or south, but center.
Yeah, always the center, yeah.
Okay.
They put me back to the same organization, to the same company, but I didn't know the people because they were all dead and the new ones came in.
Now, how did that make you feel? I mean, when you go in with the first time, you know these people, they're your friends, you trust them. How did you feel about these new people that you did not know?
Well, I was in that first line. The first line was very dangerous. There was swamp. They could go only that deep with digging because underneath was swamp. The water would come up. Yeah. So that was a miserable line. And only 50 yards to the Russian. So the Russian had long, I don't know how you call it,
telescope or binocular?
Long glasses on their guns, and in the night they could see everything. So they shot my corporal, whom I wanted to see. He got a shoulder shot just 2 days before I came there. That was very dangerous. You had to be bent down all the time, where there was a hole and I could look at the Russian line, but I thought that was a dangerous place, because if they're in the night or during the day, if I am in this part, that thing, they would shoot right through the opening, poof, in my head, because they see me there, they see me moving, Mm-hmm. But then a day later, they put me 100 meters back and trained me on mortars, mortars, 8 centimeter mortars. And later they trained me on the same place on 12 centimeter mortars. These were really grenades, Mm-hmm. You put them in the thing and came out. They fly like this, and then they goes exactly down, straight down. Yeah. And very dangerous, because they explode in the side, that was very dangerous, this thing. Yeah, and that was this front line. And then we marched back, because we were told the Russians broke through. We have to go back. So we marched toward Bobruisk. In Bobruisk, we came in the morning, something at 9 o'clock. Before Bobruisk, here is the Beresina River. Bobruisk is on the other side, and here is a village goes slowly down over to the bridge. And here on that hill we had to stop because that village was full of Russians with anti-tank guns and machine guns and everything. So we were told at 10 o'clock sharp we attacked the village. And I said, what I'm going to do? 1 hour sit around here, and we had nothing to eat. Long time, nothing to eat, need nothing to drink. And I said, I know what I do. I gonna shave. And I took my
Why not?
I took my little backpack out, my brush and my soap, and there was a puddle water, and I soaped me, and there was a tank standing here, and they were shooting into the village. But now it was not shooting. I put my little mirror on the back. That was not the tank, like this small tank, and started to shave. And the opening went up, and the officer of this tank said, what are you doing, soldier? You want to die freshly shaved? And I said to him, I don't die. And he looked at me as he wanted to say, what is wrong with this guy? Must be stupid. and I didn't die, but 2 hours later I saw him die because they were shooting and they were out of ammunition. And before they completely out of ammunition, the tank commander, they have a picture inside of that village, and of which point to shoot. He said to the guy inside, 27-4. They gave him a number, and he turns the thing and he shoots. And he was killed. This man was killed, that officer who talked to me. And then it came to the end, then it was horrible. Then all around me, people died. All around me, people died. In front, beside, above me, on this, a machine gun shot. I moved. My sergeant was on this side. I had to go over that street to this side downward, and I was just on the way to go down, passing this tank. The guy shot at me, and I dived into a little bit mold, and I said, how can I ever get out of there? Not in the day, not in the night. And then the second guy came, they shot at him, and he fell on me. And then the third guy came, he had the same trouble, but it was too high now, it was not a hole anymore, and they shot him dead, and the blood ran down over us too. And then I was lucky to see a guy came with an armored car from the back, and he thought he could go over the bridge to Bobruisk, and he was full of people, personal carrier, that were armed, had thick steel, you could not penetrate with bullets. And then this guy saw that in the middle of the village, they had put a tree there. He couldn't get over that tree. He had no chains, he had only tires, like a car. And he ran down, and he turned, and when he was between the machine gun and me, I could jump out, I went out and I was down. But then a few hours later, my sergeant said, come on, we go into this hole. There was a hole near a hole where there was water in.
A well.
Well, yeah. They said, we go in this hole for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And we saw a little bit deeper down was 2 women with their children, Russians. They didn't complain that we came in. But then a mortar came down on us, and you don't hear it because it goes straight, down. But it has a very sensitive nose, a little bit, a push, it explodes. So there were boards over us and some earth, and that was that hole. And it suddenly made puff, unbelievable. This thing flew open, and we were sitting there. It exploded that much just over our heads. And these women were screaming. We could only shake our heads. We were okay. We had nothing wrong with us. So we went out, and then an hour later, we knew we cannot go through this village. We went through a swamp and tried to swim in the night over the Beresina River. But what we didn't know, Bobruisk in the center was German controlled, but 300 meters there and 300 meters there were always the Russians, in masses. But we didn't know that. We thought we could swim the Beresina. So we went to that swamp, and there came a T-34 on the right side about 300 meters away, and some infantry, and they shot at us. They shot with that long bullets, with grenades. They shot at two guys, my sergeant and me, and they made brrr, brrr. My sergeant suddenly said, water got deeper and deeper and deeper. Hold it, Scherer, hold it. We are not going one step further. And I looked around what he means, and he took his revolver and made, shot him in the head. He fell down under the water, and I was so depressed because he was a wonderful man. He treated me as his son, and he was quiet man, intelligent, and that's how he ended. And I was so depressed. And then in my depression, I got stuck. I came to the bulrushes, and there were trees, little trees that stand in the water, and it has roots that thick, and my foot went into a hole where roots go like this, and I couldn't retrieve it. I said, wow, now I'm gonna suffocate here in that water. Then I tried again, I couldn't get that foot out. I have to try something. I go in a swimming position, and every time I go like this, I pull a little bit, And so I swam and swam maybe 24 times and pull a little bit. And I thought, now I'm gonna drown. And in this moment, my foot came loose. And I said, wow, now I have my life back, And I threw my gun away. I cannot do nothing with this gun. It's 9 pounds in that swamp. What can I do with that gun? Now I was safe, and I tried very carefully with my feet to go over all these routes. And then suddenly I was, in the evening, it was maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It was still a little bit light in the west, and I saw a railway dam in front of me. I said, wow, railway dam. And on top there were a lot of people. And I said, now it's the end. These are all Russians. And then I listened to them. And I listened and I listened, and I said, oh, they talk German, the guys up there. So I went out of the swamp and went up. And these were all guys who went to that swamp before me. And in the night, 1 o'clock, we went over the bridge to Bobruisk, but we were not connected to the German army because Bobruisk was all surrounded. And then it went on fighting and shooting, the 1,000 people dead. Right and left of me, people died. There was a general. We went toward a forest, and it came downhill a little bit. There was a general here in a Volkswagen, four-wheel drive, and there were adjutants, majors standing. There were about 5 people on this little car standing beside the general, and the general stood with this red thing here, but in a situation like this, it's worth nothing. A Russian shot with an anti-tank gun in the Volkswagen. That was only about 10 yards from me, 10 yards from me. It went poof, all the 5 guys flew up, and the Volkswagen was no more there, rubble. And I went down into the forest now, and I was thirsty. My mouth was, I had no liquid anymore in my mouth. My mouth was dry and black. So there was a big tree, and there were 2 guys sitting. So I was sitting beside them. I was sitting here was the next one, and around there the next one. And these were friends from a village in Germany. And this guy had a bottle with dirty water in it. There were wigglers in it, There were lava in from mosquitoes. And I said, give me only please what my hand can hold. I'm very happy, They said, no. That water is for us. We are friends here. So he didn't give me any water. When he said no, a grenade went apart high up on these big trees that they hit the branches, and it exploded. I think it was a 12-centimeter mortar. And a piece came down like as big as a soup spoon. And you could hear it coming. It went, pow! I hear it hitting his breast, the guy was arm in arm with me, and it went into his lungs. And he started coughing, because the lung was filling up with blood. And the other guy, he didn't know what happened. He said, is there something wrong? I said, your friend, I think, has a splinter in his lung. Oh, well, he said, I put you on my back, I carry you home. And the man shook his head, he said, and I walk away, and it went on and on, people, to the next village. I was sitting here on a wooden sidewalk, and I found 2 guys I knew. One guy beside me direct, and here, and a shot rang out from the house. This guy in the middle fell in the street. And where the general died, 100 men died. On my left side, 100 men with machine gun fire. And before that, entered the forest, the guys found wild strawberries, and I didn't have to eat and to drink. I wanted to, but I'm colorblind. I didn't see them. They had in no time a handful and put it in their mouth. I said, and they went in the forest, and I was still looking for the strawberries. There came an American fighter bomber. I only saw one in my life. He came down and he shot big caliber explosive ammunition.
Okay.
He shot dum, 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 and one bullet went here and one bullet there. And I said, pig. I remember that. And I went down and went ahead to look for the strawberries. And he turned around. I said, don't tell me he comes back. And he came back, he shot again, bum, 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 and shot again here, one down, and that hit the ground and, exploded. Then I went in the forest, and there 100 men died with mortars. There was a village over there, and there was a brook. I said, nobody goes out and gets some water. There are Russians in this village with mortars. And they didn't listen at me. I had no. But sometimes I had to say something, and I said, nobody goes. And they went down, came back, and they started with their mortar shooting. 100 people dead. And I walked away and I said, "Comrade, take me with you." I said, "How can I take with you? I told you, nobody goes to the water. Now you have it here." And they were wounded, and it got on and on. And then a few hours later, next morning, I became prisoner of war. And then it got not better, it got worse.